She didn't see me at first. I wasn't supposed to be there. My flight was delayed 3 hours due to some kind of mechanical issue, and I was wandering through the airport trying to find a charging station that actually worked. That's when I spotted her. Marnie, my wife, standing by Gate 19. Not Portland, not Seattle, not even close to the gate she told me she was flying out of. She was standing near a man, tall, stylish, probably early 40s, and she was smiling, that soft smile she hadn't used on me in months, the one that used to be mine. She was laughing, touching his arm, looking up at him the way someone does when they're invested, not just present. They didn't see me. I stayed behind a Starbucks kiosk just far enough away to stay invisible, just close enough to see everything. That's when it happened. He leaned in. She didn't flinch. Their lips met casually, like it was normal, like it was routine. A friendly kiss, maybe in another universe. In this one, it felt like a knife down my spine. I pulled out my phone. I wasn't thinking clearly. My hands were shaking like I had low blood sugar or something. But I managed to snap 2 blurry photos. The sound was off, no click, just proof. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I needed it. And that's when she turned, locked eyes with me. It was like time stopped just for a second. She blinked. He looked confused. I stood frozen like some idiot in a bad dream. She started walking toward me fast. She mounted something I couldn't hear through the terminal noise, then jogged the last few steps and pulled me toward the sidewall like she didn't want him to see us together. "Elwood, what are you doing here?" I stared at her. That was her first question. Not, "Why are you watching me?" Not, "This isn't what it looks like." No, just surprise, like I was intruding. "You said Gate 12. I finally muttered. "You said you were flying to Denver." She hesitated, blinked fast. I changed flights last minute. There was an overbooking." I didn't respond. My hands were still shaking. She looked at them, then at my face, and softened her voice. It wasn't what you think. We were just saying goodbye. It's complicated, but it's not cheating, okay? It was just a friendly kiss. We're friends from college." I said nothing. "I know it looks bad," she added quickly, "but if we can just go home and talk, I swear I'll explain everything. I didn't mean for it to look like this. Please, just take me home, okay? Let's go somewhere private." My mouth went dry. And the strangest part? I nodded because something in me needed answers. Or maybe I needed to hear her lie to my face just one more time to believe it. But what she didn't know, and what I didn't expect, was that the most shocking part hadn't even happened yet. Because when we got back to her suitcase, there was a second return ticket. 2 passengers, 1 hotel room, and a name I'd never heard before. That's where it really began. I followed her in silence. We walked through the terminal like 2 strangers, pretending we hadn't just collided in the ugliest way possible. She kept glancing over her shoulder, making sure I was still behind her, like she wasn't sure whether to run or explain. The man she'd kissed stood by the window near their gate, oblivious to the unraveling happening just 20 feet away. Or maybe he did see. Maybe this was all rehearsed. She led me to a bench near baggage claim, saying she needed to grab her bag from the holding area because she checked it for convenience. I didn't say a word. Not because I had nothing to say. I had too much. My chest felt like it was packed with shattered glass, and every breath moved the pieces deeper. She handed her baggage receipt to the airline rep and waited beside me. The silence between us wasn't just awkward, it was loud. Every second without a word felt like a scream. Finally, she spoke. "Elwood, I know what you think you saw, and I know how it must look." I cut her off, voice dry. "Stop saying that. You know what I saw. I saw you kiss him. I saw you smile after. You weren't drunk. You weren't confused. You were comfortable. Her jaw tensed. It wasn't romantic. Oh, then what was it? I asked. Was it a handshake with your lips? She flinched at that, and I hated that I still cared enough to feel bad for saying it. I didn't tell you about Milo because I knew you'd jump to conclusions, she said finally. Milo, I repeated. The guy from the gate, she nodded, biting her lip. He's a friend from way back. I ran into him recently at a business event and it just got easy to talk. He listens. He gets it. She said, he gets it, like it was a justification. Like I was the foreign language she had grown tired of translating. The airline rep returned with her suitcase, wheeling it over like a hand-delivered bomb. She took it and thanked him, then turned back to me. Let's just go somewhere we can breathe and talk, okay? I don't want to do this here. I should have walked away. Should have left her standing there with her carry-on full of excuses. But I didn't. Because when you've built nearly a decade with someone, your instincts don't tell you to run. They tell you to fix even when it's too late. We took a rideshare back to her hotel, and yes, her hotel. She hadn't even tried to use the one she told me she was staying in with her sister. She sat beside me, arms folded tight, trying not to let our knees touch. The driver tried making small talk. I barely heard a word. Once we got to the hotel, I followed her up to the room. It was on the 11th floor, ocean-facing, stupidly expensive. She fumbled the key card, then opened the door and stepped inside like it was nothing. Like this wasn't the scene of a betrayal. That's when I saw it. A second suitcase, not hers. It was black, hard shell with a silver tag. And right there, hanging from the closet door, was a men's dress shirt, white, crisp, freshly ironed. I didn't ask. I walked over to the desk where the hotel folio sat, half folded open. There it was. 1 reservation, 2 adults, 3 nights, king bed, room service charges, a bottle of white wine billed to the room yesterday. Her face turned pale the moment she saw me reading it. Elwood, please don't make this worse. Don't make this worse. I laughed. I actually laughed. The kind of laugh that comes from a place between fury and heartbreak, where nothing feels real anymore. You didn't plan to tell me anything, did you? I said quietly. You weren't going to Portland. You were never going to Portland. You just decided I didn't need to know. She sat down on the edge of the bed, fingers tangled in her hair. I didn't plan this. It just happened. That phrase, it just happened. Like falling down a flight of stairs. Like tripping into betrayal. You flew to another city with another man and kissed him at an airport. I said, that doesn't just happen. That's not an accident. That's a blueprint. She didn't respond. She just looked at the carpet like it had answers. I picked up my phone. I wasn't sure what I was doing. Maybe taking photos of the room, maybe texting myself the folio. I needed proof. Not for court, not for social media. For me. Because when someone you love gaslights your reality, you start needing receipts for your own sanity. And just when I thought the lies were done, when I thought it couldn't twist any deeper, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. One word lit up the screen. Room ready. It was from Milo. I looked at her. She looked at me. No one said a thing. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just the first man to find out. I don't know why I answered the door. Maybe it was muscle memory, some pathetic instinct left over from years of being the one to get up and check the door when she was too tired or too busy or just didn't feel like moving. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I just wanted to see the man who'd somehow taken my place without even having the decency to know my name. Either way, I opened it, and I wish I could unsee what I saw. Milo stood there. He didn't look surprised, not even a flicker. He glanced at me with this calm, mildly confused expression, like I was the hotel concierge who had wandered into the wrong room. He had a small duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a takeaway cup in his hand. Probably coffee. Probably for her. His eyes scanned me up and down, and I felt like a piece of furniture being inspected. Outdated, unnecessary, ignored. "Hey," he said casually, "you must be Elwood." The fact that he knew my name made my skin crawl. Before I could respond or react at all, Marnie appeared behind me, suddenly animated, her voice shrill and too cheerful. "Milo, wait outside for a second." "Okay." She smiled tightly. "Just give me a minute." He raised an eyebrow. "You didn't tell him." Marnie's smile faltered. "Tell me what, exactly?" She pushed the door shut between us and him with a sharp click, then turned to me like a teacher about to deliver bad news to a parent. "I didn't want you to hear it like this," she said softly. I just stood there, empty, watching her like I was watching someone else's wife, a stranger with my last name. "You were supposed to be at a conference," I muttered. "You were supposed to be out of state. But you're here with him, booking hotel rooms, making up flights, lying to my face." She exhaled, almost frustrated. "Elwood, listen to me. I was going to tell you everything when I got home. This wasn't supposed to go down like this." "You keep saying that," I said, "but it keeps going down like this." There was a long pause. I could tell she was weighing her words carefully, rehearsing them in real time. "I've been seeing him for a few months," she said finally. "I didn't plan it. It started after that conference in Chicago when you were sick and couldn't come. We reconnected. We just clicked. Clicked, as if I was just a broken switch." I felt my knees go weak. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, their bed, I guess, and tried to focus on something, anything that would keep me from unraveling. The minibar light, the hum of the A, the crack in the ceiling paint. She kept talking. "I didn't want to hurt you. Well, I swear I didn't. I felt invisible, like we were living next to each other, not with each other. And Milo, he made me feel seen again. I know how awful that sounds, but it's the truth." I looked up at her, tears blurring my vision, voice barely a whisper. "So, what was your plan, Marn? To go on a fake trip to Portland, sleep with him for 3 days, then come home and hug me like nothing happened?" She didn't answer. Her silence was the loudest confession I'd ever heard. I stood up, walked to the closet. My hands moved without my mind's permission. I grabbed Milo's shirt off the hanger and tossed it on the floor like it burned me. Then I turned back to her. "Let him in," I said quietly. She blinked. "What?" "Let him in." She hesitated but opened the door. Milo stepped inside like he owned the place, like this was just an awkward family reunion. He glanced around, took in the emotional debris scattered in the air, and set his coffee down on the desk like it was a normal morning. I looked him in the eyes. "You knew she was married?" He nodded. "She told me, and you were okay with that." I figured if something was solid, she wouldn't be with me. That sentence hit me like a punch in the stomach. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to hit him, to do something. But I didn't, because what would that change? I already lost. I was just the man who showed up after the show was over and demanded the program notes. I turned to Marnie. "I'm not staying in this room. I'm not staying in this marriage. But you're not going to rewrite this to make yourself the victim. Not this time. You've been planning this longer than you admit. You left breadcrumbs. I just didn't want to see them. She reached for me, tears starting to form. Elwood, number. I cut in. I hope he makes you feel seen, because I've never felt more invisible than I do right now. And then I left. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because 3 days later, she showed up at my door. And this time she brought something with her I never expected. Something that made the betrayal 10 times worse. 3 days passed. I didn't eat much. Couldn't sleep either. I kept reliving it in my head. Her lips on his. The look on her face when she saw me. The second suitcase in the hotel room. The way Milo just strolled in like I was a minor inconvenience in their perfectly curated affair. My apartment, the one I moved into that very night after leaving the hotel, still smelled like fresh paint and cardboard. I hadn't even unpacked my clothes. Just opened a bottle of whiskey and stared at the ceiling until my phone battery died from ignoring calls. I didn't expect her to show up. Not so soon, and definitely not like that. It was late afternoon. I'd just come back from the store, arms full of frozen dinners and toothpaste I didn't need. I was halfway through my front door when I saw her car parked crooked like she hadn't been thinking straight. The engine was off, but she was still in the driver's seat, staring ahead like she was trying to remember how to breathe. I didn't say anything. I walked past her, unlocked my apartment door, and went inside. I dropped my groceries on the counter and stood there waiting. Sure enough, 30 seconds later came the knock. I opened the door without looking through the peephole. She was standing there, hair disheveled, eyes puffy. But that wasn't what caught me off guard. She wasn't alone. There was a teenage girl beside her, 17, maybe 18, dirty blonde hair, nervous eyes, and she looked eerily familiar. I didn't speak. I just stared. Marn cleared her throat and offered a broken smile. "Can we come in?" I stepped aside slowly, not because I wanted to, but because I was too stunned to say no. They sat on the couch. I leaned against the counter, arms folded, heart thudding like a war drum. "This is Bria," Marn said quietly. "She's Milo's daughter." I blinked, confused. "Okay." And Marn looked at Bria, then back at me. "She's pregnant." The air disappeared from the room. My mind immediately assumed the worst. "Wait, what? What does that have to do with me?" "She was afraid to go to him," Marnay explained. "He's not exactly warm when it comes to unexpected news. She doesn't have anyone else, and she showed up at my office yesterday. She thought maybe I could help." I stared at Bria. She looked down at her hands, barely breathing. "And so what?" I said, voice shaking. "You bring her to me, to the man you just betrayed? What am I supposed to do with this?" Marnay's eyes welled up again. "I didn't know where else to take her, and I didn't want to leave her alone. She asked to see you. She said, you seemed like someone who'd listen." I almost laughed. Someone who'd listen. That's what I was now. A backup emotional support system for my wife's affair partner's pregnant daughter. "You want me to talk to her?" I said bitterly. "While her dad is playing house with his married girlfriend?" Marnay winced. "Please don't say it like that." "How should I say it, Marnay? Should I be polite about the fact that you blew up our marriage, lied to me for months, and now want me to comfort the teenager tied to the man you left me for?" Bria finally spoke. Her voice was soft. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause more drama. My mom's gone. My dad isn't exactly thrilled about being a dad again. I didn't know who to talk to." I looked at her for a long moment. Something in her reminded me of myself, scared, displaced, used to being ignored. I hated it. Hated that my empathy was stronger than my anger. Hated that I nodded and offered her a glass of water while Marn watched like I just passed some moral test she set up without warning. We sat in silence for a while. Bria sipped her water. Marn stared at the floor. I stared at both of them, wondering what kind of circus my life had become. And then Bria said something that froze my blood. My dad's been with other women before, but you were different. He called you the final one. Said once you moved to San Diego, it had all lined up. I turned to Marnie. Moved? She looked horrified. I stepped forward, voice low and sharp. You moving in with him? She shook her head rapidly. No, he mentioned it, but I never agreed. I told him I needed time. I never committed to anything. You didn't even tell me you were thinking about moving. I didn't think it mattered anymore. She whispered, that was it. That sentence. I didn't think it mattered anymore. She didn't just betray me, she erased me. I grabbed my keys off the table. You both need to go. Elle, please. Now, Marnie, I mean it. She stood up, hesitated like she wanted to say something more, then gently urged Bria to follow. I didn't watch them walk out. I just closed the door and locked it. I leaned against it, trying to remember what breathing felt like. And yet, that wasn't even the lowest point, because the next morning I received an email. It was from Milo. Subject line, we should talk, man. And what he wrote inside made everything even worse. I opened the email 5 times before reading a single word. Every time I hovered my cursor over it, my stomach knotted tighter. It sat there in my inbox like a trap. The subject line was short, just 5 words. We should talk, man. And the sender, Milo Bennett. No introduction, no apologies, no emotion. Just calm, calculated gall. At first I thought it was a prank, a cruel, twisted joke. But it was real. He used his personal email address. The same name Bria had mentioned the day before. The same man who stepped over the ashes of my marriage like they were merely decorations in his new life. When I finally clicked it open, my hands were already trembling. I had no idea what to expect. A taunt, a confession, a threat. What I got was something far worse. From Milo Bennett to Elwood Graham. Subject, we should talk, man. Elwood, I know you probably hate me right now, and I don't blame you. This isn't how I ever wanted things to unfold. But the fact that we've crossed wires the way we have, well, I think you deserve to hear it directly from me. Marnie and I didn't start anything with the intention of hurting you. It started small. Coffee after an event, an email chain about branding, a few jokes. And then one day it felt like we were just there. No line left to cross. I've asked Marnie to move in with me permanently. She hasn't said yes, but I know she's leaning toward it. I think she's just trying to be careful about how it ends with you. You deserve a clean break. You've earned that at least. She's told me how things have been between you two. I know it's none of my business, but hearing how disconnected it was, how unseen she felt, it made me understand why she gravitated toward someone like me. Someone who listens, someone who makes her laugh again. This probably sounds cold. I don't mean it that way. I just wanted to give you clarity, man to man. If you want to talk face to face, I'm around. No pressure, but it might help us all move forward. Take care, Milo. I stared at the screen for so long the backlight started burning my retinas. Every line felt like it had been written with surgical detachment, like I was a patient on a table, and he was calmly explaining how he'd removed the life I built piece by piece. He wanted to meet. He wanted closure. He wanted to help me move forward. I laughed out loud, and it came out like a cough. Of all the audacity I'd been handed lately, this was the richest. He was trying to be polite, the worst kind of politeness, the kind that wraps a blade in velvet before driving it in. He thought if he phrased it gently enough, I'd thank him for gutting my marriage with elegance, that I'd sit down for a civilized chat about how best to remove myself from my own life. I didn't reply. Instead, I did something stupid. I got in my car, drove to the address I had once seen on a hotel folio slip from Marn's bag, the one she claimed was just temporary, just for the weekend. It was a rental house near the coast. Big windows, ocean view, 2 floors. Too perfect, too clean. I parked across the street, engine running, heart pounding like I'd committed a crime. Through the glass I saw them. Marn was in the kitchen. She was barefoot, holding a mug, laughing at something he said. Milo walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist like it was second nature. Like I had never existed. Like I had never built the foundation they were now comfortably dancing on. There was music playing, soft, jazzy, and for a brief second, I was overwhelmed with this eerie feeling that I was watching a movie when I didn't remember auditioning for, but somehow lost the lead role in. And then Bria walked in from a hallway, rubbing her eyes. She was wearing a hoodie, my hoodie, the gray one I'd left behind at our old place. She yawned, said something to Marna, and the 3 of them started laughing like a family. My breath caught. I wanted to scream, throw something, drive my car through the front door just to make them see me. But I didn't. I stayed there frozen, trying to understand when I became the ghost of my own life. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Marna. "You don't need to spy. If you want to talk, just come inside." I looked up, and there she was, standing at the window, phone in hand, staring right at me. No shock, no guilt, just quiet, tired recognition. Like she'd expected me eventually, like she'd already rehearsed this scene. I didn't get out. I couldn't. I reversed and drove away. I spent the rest of the night walking aimlessly through town, trying to figure out how someone could leave you while still calling it love. But the universe wasn't done with me yet, because the next morning, I received a package. No return address, just my name, handwritten. Inside a flash drive, a note, 5 words. Watch, then decide everything. And the footage on that drive, it changed everything. I held the flash drive in my hand for a long time, just staring at it like it might bite me. The handwriting on the note wasn't Mars, that much I knew. It was slandered and sharp, almost like someone wrote it in a hurry. No cinder, no postmark, just a plain brown envelope slid under my door while I slept. I didn't have to open it. I could have thrown it away, pretended it never arrived. But I've never been good at ignoring pain. Not when it whispers. And definitely not when it screams. I plugged the drive into my laptop. The icon popped up immediately. 1 file, no folder, no title. Just a video timestamp. 3 nights ago, the same night I left that hotel room, the same night I stayed behind with Milo. My heart started pounding before I even clicked play. My body knew what was coming before my brain could form the thought. The video started in a dark room. A phone camera, shaky at first, then steadying. It looked like it had been placed deliberately on a shelf or hidden on a dresser. I didn't recognize the angle until a lamp flickered on. It was the same hotel room. The bed, the curtains, the ugly ocean-themed painting. No sound at first, just shadows moving in the dim light.
Then Milo's voice, clear, casual.
You think he's going to come back after that? And then Marne's voice, dry, laughing. Elwood, no, he won't even raise his voice, let alone fight. He'll sulk, maybe cry, disappear for a while. But it's better this way. Milo walked into frame, shirtless. He poured something into a glass and handed it to her off camera. I got to admit, I didn't think it would be this easy. I thought he'd at least punch me. He's too tired to fight, she said. Always was.
Elwood would rather write sad journal entries than throw a punch.
He laughed. Then it's good you've got me now. Then she said something that made my spine lock in place. I never had to lie to him, you know. He lied to himself. I didn't hide who I was. He just didn't want to see it. Milo leaned back against the dresser, sipping his drink. Well, he sees it now. She sighed off screen. I almost feel bad, but I also feel free. The video cut off. No end. No goodbyes. Just silence. I sat there, fists clenched so tightly I thought I'd break my own knuckles. My ears rang. My jaw ached from how hard I was grinding my teeth. My body was hot with rage, but not the kind that makes you scream. The kind that makes you still, paralyzed, like grief had evolved into something quieter and colder. She didn't just cheat on me. She pitted me. She told him I lied to myself, that I made it easy, that I deserved this, that I never fought. And maybe she was right. I didn't fight. I didn't yell. I didn't tear the room apart when I caught them. I walked away like a ghost, like I'd already accepted being replaced. But something about hearing her say it out loud, that deliberate, twisted justification, snapped something in me I didn't know could still break. I didn't know who sent the video. I didn't care. Maybe Bria, maybe someone at the hotel, maybe karma. But whoever it was, they wanted me to see it. All of it. Not the affair, not the betrayal, the dehumanization, the way she'd rewritten the entire relationship in a single night to make herself feel brave instead of guilty. I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I called my landlord and told him I'd be leaving the apartment. No notice needed. I didn't want the walls to remember the sound of that video playing. Then, I packed a single duffel bag and drove. Not to Marna's place, not to Milo's rent-a-beach house. I drove 2 hours north to a cabin I hadn't visited in years. My grandfather left it to me in his will. I hadn't stepped foot inside since his funeral, but it was mine. Quiet, remote, unreachable. I turned off my phone. For the first time in days, I sat in complete silence. And I cried. Not the kind of crying you do after a breakup. The kind that feels like mourning because I was mourning. Mourning the version of her I thought was real. Mourning the version of me that still believed people like her could change. Mourning the 10 years of my life I spent building a home, while she was quietly looking for the emergency exit. That night, as I sat by the fireplace staring into the flames, I made a decision. No more waiting. No more reacting. I was going to write something, not to her, not to him, to everyone. I was done being quiet. I was done letting them own the narrative. But before I could start typing, I got a knock at the cabin door. No one knew I was here. No one should have been able to find me. I opened it, and there she was, Marna, crying, shaking, alone. And what she said next was so insane, I nearly laughed in her face. She stood there in the cold mountain air, drenched from the light rain, hair tangled, eyes red like she hadn't slept in days. The same woman who once stood in a wedding dress promising me forever now looked like a stranger barely holding herself together. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating, that the firelight behind me and the silence in my chest had finally broken something in my mind. But then she spoke, and it was her. It was really her. "Elwood," she whispered, arms hugging herself like she was shrinking. "Please." I didn't know where else to go. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at her with the weight of 1,000 sleepless hours hanging in my chest. I could still hear her voice from that video, laughing, calling me weak, calling herself free. And yet here she was, barefoot in mud-soaked leggings, clutching her elbows like they were the last thing holding her together. I made a mistake," she stammered. I laughed, not because it was funny. It was the kind of laugh that slips out when something snaps inside you for the last time. "Which one, Marnie?" I asked quietly. "You'll have to be more specific." She winced, stepping forward like she expected me to catch her. I didn't. "I didn't know you'd be here," she said. "Ria told me about the flash drive. She shouldn't have sent it. I didn't mean any of that." I cut her off. "You meant every word, and even if you didn't, you said them. You laughed. You called me invisible. You said I never saw you. You said I never fought." Her lip quivered and I saw it again. That performative vulnerability she used when real accountability was too heavy for her to carry. But this time it wasn't working. "You were never supposed to see that," she said, voice barely above a whisper, and yet I did. Silence hung between us for a long time. The only sound was the rain hitting the leaves outside and the fire crackling behind me. She exhaled shakily. "I left Milo." I raised an eyebrow. "That fast? Did the rental lease run out, or did reality finally hit when he asked you to do laundry?" Her shoulders sank. "He wasn't who I thought he was. Once I moved in, things changed. He was cold, controlling. Everything had to be his way. I wasn't allowed to talk to Bria unless he was in the room." Even she paused, voice cracking. "He even made me quit my job." I didn't flinch. I didn't soften. I stood like stone. "I thought I was escaping something," she said, "but I ran into something worse." I shook my head. "You weren't escaping. You were rewriting. You were replacing. You just thought the next draft would be easier to live with." She stepped forward again. "I came here because I realized I never actually left you. Not emotionally. I was angry. I was selfish. But I never stopped loving you." I stared at her like she was a painting that used to move me, but now just looked flat and hollow. "You say that now, after everything, after he turned out to be less than perfect?" "It's not like that," she insisted. "He scared me." "And what? You came here for safety? For comfort? After you told the man who betrayed me that I wouldn't even fight for myself?" Tears streamed down her face. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just didn't want you to think that you were the problem." "You don't get to decide that anymore," I said. "You don't get to control how I heal." "I'm not trying to." I took a breath and stepped aside from the doorway. "You have 5 minutes. You're wet. You look like hell. You can sit by the fire and dry off, but after 5 minutes, you leave for good." She didn't argue. She nodded like a child being scolded. Walked in slowly, hands trembling. I watched her sit by the fire, clutching a blanket from the armchair like she hadn't just torn through the fabric of my life 3 days ago. She stared at the flames for a while, like she was trying to find something in them that could explain this moment. I lied to myself. She whispered. I told myself that if I felt seen, it meant it was right. But that wasn't clarity. It was delusion. You saw me, Louwood. You always did. I just hated the reflection you gave me because it reminded me who I really was. That one hit deeper than I expected. I can't ask you for another chance, she said, but I had to say it. I had to admit it to your face. You deserve that. You deserved all of it. Every truth, every apology, and I don't know if anyone else will ever see me again the way you did. But I wanted to thank you for that, even if it's too late. I didn't say anything. She stood slowly.
I'll go now. She walked toward the door, then paused.
If you ever wonder whether you mattered, you did. You mattered more than I ever let you know. And I'm sorry I didn't say it before everything fell apart. She stepped outside. The door closed. I didn't follow. I just stood there, numb. But the story wasn't over, because later that night I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It wasn't Bria. It wasn't Milo. It was someone who had been watching everything, and they wanted to meet. When the unknown number lit up my screen, I nearly let it go to voicemail. I was emotionally drained, barely able to process what had just happened with Marnie. But something about the timing, the stillness of the night, the fire still glowing behind me, pushed me to answer. "Hello?" I said cautiously. There was a pause, then a warm, familiar voice replied. "Elwood." "Hey, it's Sandra from the university's alumni group. I know it's been years, but I wasn't sure who else to call." My heart stumbled. Sandra. We'd gone to college together, but I hadn't heard from her in at least 6 years. She was sharp, kind, and funny in a way that stuck with you. We'd been close, not romantically, just two people who clicked like puzzle pieces that didn't belong in the same box. "I know this is out of the blue," she continued, "but I heard through someone that you've been going through a rough time. I'm sorry. I really am." I swallowed hard. "Yeah, that's putting it lightly." She hesitated. "Well, listen, I'm going to say something crazy. Feel free to hang up, but I'm actually not far from where you are. I'm renting a cabin about 30 minutes north. I needed time away too. I know it's probably not what you want right now, but would you want to grab coffee? Just two old friends catching up. No pressure. Zero expectations." I paused. There was no bitterness in her voice, no hidden agenda, just warmth, genuine care. In a week full of lies and shattered truths, her tone felt like a life raft. I agreed. The next morning, we met at a sleepy diner off a winding highway. She was already there, sitting by the window, waving at me like we hadn't lost time at all. We talked for 2 hours, then 4, then 6, about everything and nothing, about books we never finished and people we barely remembered. We didn't talk about Marna until the end. And even then, it wasn't about her betrayal. It was about how broken people can still be whole again. About how endings, even cruel ones, make room for beginnings we never saw coming. She told me something that stuck with me. When people show you who they are, it's not always to hurt you. Sometimes it's just to free you. We parted ways with no promises, no expectations. Just something that felt new, clean, like hope without pressure. In the weeks that followed, I started writing again. Not angry rants or unfinished journal entries, but essays, observations, pieces of myself that I'd forgotten how to express. I got calls from friends I hadn't spoken to in years. My sister flew out to visit me just to sit in the cabin and eat cereal at midnight, like we were kids again. I filed for divorce. It wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no court battles. Just paperwork and a final acknowledgement of what had already ended long ago. Ria sent me a letter, a real one, with stamps and everything.
She said thank you for listening. That she was keeping the baby, that she had moved in with a cousin across the state and was trying to do better than her parents did. Marnie never reached out again, and I didn't need her to. I sold the apartment, kept the cabin, learned to enjoy the silence again, started volunteering at a local community tech center for teens, even taught a few coding classes at the local school. Then one evening in spring, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just a card. Inside it read, "I'm back in town for a few weeks." Coffee again, and beneath it, in soft handwriting, I instantly recognized Sandra. So I showed up, and this time I wasn't the one standing in the rain. I was the one opening the